And for the reading of the gospel. And we're looking at Matthew 23, 1 through 13. Well, they have 1 through 12. Now Jesus turned to address his disciples along with the crowd that had gathered with him. The religion scholars and Pharisees are competent teachers in God's laws. You won't go wrong in following their teachings on Moses, but be careful about following them. They talk a good line, but they don't live it. They don't take it into their hearts and live it out in their behavior. It's all spit and polish veneer. Instead of giving you God's law as food and drink by which you can banquet on God, they package it in bundles of rules, loading you down like pack animals. They seem to take pleasure in watching you stagger under these loads. They seem to take pleasure in, already read that part. Their lives are perpetual fashion shows, embroidered prayer shawls one day and flowery prayers the next. They love to sit at the head table at church dinners, basking in the most prominent positions, preening in the radiance of public flattery, receiving honorary degrees and getting called doctor and reverend. Don't let people do that to you. Put you on a pedestal. You all have a single teacher and you are all classmates. Don't set people up as experts over your life, letting them tell you what to do. Save that authority for God. Let him tell you what to do. No one else should carry the title of Father. You have only one Father, and he's in heaven. And don't let people maneuver you into taking charge of them. There is only one life leader for you and them, Christ. Do you want to stand out and then step down? Do you want to stand out? Then step down. Be a servant. If you puff yourself up, you'll get the wind knocked out of you. But if you're content to simply be yourself, your life will count for plenty. Frauds. I've had it with you, you hypocrites, you religion scholars, you Pharisees. Frauds. Your lives are roadblocks to God's kingdom. You refuse to enter, and you won't let anyone else enter either. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, Christ.
Please be seated. Well, we had some confusion, and I started working on last week's gospel instead of this week's gospel. And since I had it half done, the pastor said, go ahead and use last week's gospel because she didn't preach on that anyway. So we kind of take some turns down then. I'm trying to see what I can read here. And it looked like the Pharisees weren't practicing what they preached. They told the people to do one thing. They held them to one standard. They had a lot of side rules going with what the Jewish law said. Like you could walk so far on Sunday to feed something, but you couldn't walk any further. And so they held the people to all these different rules. Well, Jesus calls out the hypocrisy of the Jewish hierarchy. Can everybody hear okay? Okay. I'm using two mics. Is it?
You're fine.
It's loud enough. Is it clear enough? Okay. Well, sometimes I can hear loud and not clear. So, okay. So anyway, Jesus called out the hypocrisy of the Jewish hierarchy, and they made sure the common people toed the line and followed all the rules they'd set up, but they didn't hold themselves to those standards. They didn't practice what they preached. And so Jesus was calling them out on it. Now today, the question we ask ourselves is, do we practice what we preach? Well, that's a good question. I recently read Beth Moore's book, My All Knotted Up Life. Her autobiography, along with being excellently written and humorous in many places. Now, a good number of you have done probably some of her studies. She's done a lot of ladies' studies. And from what I hear, they've been really good. I haven't personally done any of her studies, but when I read her book, I was just really impressed with it. It was excellently written, and she's funny. She really had a lot of humor in the book, and because we had both grown up with the same background, I related to a lot of what she had to say. But what really touched my heart was the love that she showed for those in our shared denomination that had loved, supported, and mentored her over the years. And I realized I'd never thought of it that way. I had been so focused on the small handful of people who had said what I perceived to have been mean or judgmental things in those churches. It never dawned on me to be thankful for all the wonderful people who had loved, supported, and mentored me through my childhood, youth, and young adult years. It changed my perspective towards the denomination as a whole. There were, and there still are, a lot of wonderful people in that denomination. Now, they're doing some things I just can't agree with these days, and I certainly can't go back. But the story has 2 points. One is we need to focus on the positive people and the things they say and do, rather on people that we perceive as the negative people and the ones that we think are saying negative things. And the second thing is we need to watch ourselves. We need to watch what we say and how we act towards other people, and especially children and teenagers, because they're so impressionable. We never know how something we may say off the top of our head to a child or teen will be perceived by that child, or maybe even their family members. We want to continue to attract families with children and youth to our churches, and we need them in order to grow and to have to bring in young people. Because you kind of look around, we're kind of getting a little long in the tooth here. We're kind of getting a little bit on the old side. I used to be one of the younger people, and now I'm kind of one of the oldsters. I've spent a good amount of time walking back things I've said over the years because it hurt somebody's feelings. And that had not been my intent. I have one of those mouths that can go off without it clearing my brain. And sometimes it doesn't even reflect what I really think. It's a constant struggle. There's 2 kinds of people in the world: those of us who say too much and those of you who say too little. And depending on the situation, any of us can be on either side of that. A good number of years ago, a friend and I started studying personality styles, partially for sport, because it was fun, and partially because I was trying to figure out why some people just didn't like me. With each study, I learned a little more about how my style of communicating could run over the top of other types of people without my realizing it, and how I had to think about some of the things I said before they came out my mouth. I'm better at it, but I'm not completely good. So if I've offended you, I really apologize. It wasn't my intent. It was one of the times when my mouth went off without my brain kicking in. As a result, over the years, I've tried to adjust my way of communicating. I don't always succeed, but it's my goal to communicate in a kind and positive manner. In order to do that, I have to constantly think about how I'm coming across to others. So what is Jesus saying in today's gospel? In verses 11 and 12, do you want to stand out? Then step down. Be a servant. If you pull yourself up, you'll get the wind knocked out of you. But if you're content to simply be yourself, your life will count for plenty. So do we practice what we preach? I think for the most part, most of us try to. Do we always make it? No, because we're not going to be perfect till we get to the pearly gates. But I think we're not capable of totally making it in this life. We just have to give it our best shot, and all we can do is keep trying and keep encouraging each other. Thanks be to God.